7 p.m. in Gardner, Kansas. I'm going to call the Gardner City Council to order. Will you please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So glad to see so many of your smiling faces here tonight. All right, because of cameras, I'm supposed to do this in front of the microphone here so that the folks at home can listen. I'm reading a proclamation for Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month. Whereas autism spectrum disorder is a complex neurological and developmental disorder, it can affect each person differently, resulting in unique strengths and weaknesses. And whereas autism is the third most common developmental disability affecting 3.5 million individuals nationwide, often accompanied by medical conditions that impact the quality of life. And whereas as more health professionals become proficient in diagnosing autism, more children are being diagnosed on the autism spectrum, resulting in rates as high as 1 in 54 children nationally. And whereas autism can cause challenges with verbal and nonverbal communication, social interaction, and repetitive behaviors, and can affect anyone regardless of age, race, ethnicity, gender, or socioeconomic background. And whereas a comprehensive collaborative approach will help to advance research, provide a better understanding of the many forms of autism, while strengthening advocacy efforts and ensuring access to services and resources through their lifespan. And whereas early diagnosis and intervention tailored to individual needs can have lifelong benefits, easing the transition to adulthood and fostering greater independence. And whereas each person and family affected by autism should have access to reliable information, support, and opportunities to live up to their greatest potential. Now, therefore, be resolved that I, Steve Shute, Mayor of the City of Gardner, Kansas, do hereby proclaim April 2021 as Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month in Gardner, Kansas, to increase understanding and acceptance of people with autism spectrum disorder and to address the diverse needs of individuals and families affected by autism. All right, and I believe we have a special guest who's going to be accepting the award on the part of the autism group. Very nice to meet you, sir. Oh, can't do that. I'll do this. All right. It's hard habits. They're hard to break. Here you go, sir.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, turn around and
turn around. Turn around.
Come over this way, sorry. Right here. All right. And then hold this. And then smile for the camera. Woohoo! Present.
Yes.
All right, well, please.
Thank you to all my friends and family for coming tonight. I have lots of support in my life. I think it's important to have April as Autism Awareness Month so people can learn about autism and how to support and love others who have autism in our community too. Autism makes us different, but really everybody is different. None of us are the same. We need to learn to love and accept others no matter what, because really all any of us want is to be accepted for who we are and be included.
This is yours, and he does it better than me, so thank you so much. And we really do respect and love the autism community in the town. I know, Jennifer, you've done a lot of work in this area for a long, long time. And thank you so much for staying with us. And we love the partnership that we have with the autism community in the city of Gardner. Thank you again. We had asked Shirley Ollenbrand, our county commissioner, to join us this evening for a update from the county, but I do not see her in presence, so we will move on to the next items on our agenda. We're going to move on to public comments. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. Again, if you wish to come forward, there's only a couple of ground rules. The first one is there's a time clock on my right, your left. If you wish to come forward, you need to try to limit your comments to 5 minutes in length or less, and no profanity and no personal attacks. With those ground rules being in place, I will open up the podium for public comments. Please come forward, state your name and address. Seeing none, I'm going to move on to the consent agenda. Is there any member of the council who wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda?
Items 7 and 8.
Number 7 and 8.
Number 5.
Number 5. All right. Anyone else? All right, I'll entertain a motion on consent agenda items 1 through 4 and 6.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Baldwin, second Deaton, that we approve consent agenda items 1 through 4 and 6. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Consent agendas items 1 through 4 and 6 pass. Consent agenda item number 5, consider authorizing an agreement with Charter Communications Operating LLC for 500 megabits fiber internet service for Gardner City Hall. Councilman Gorsick, what questions do you have for this?
Thank you, Mayor. Jim, this question is for you. I just want to ensure that we're saving money through this move. And I would assume that because we save money, we also are receiving better service on behalf of the city.
Yes, we've had a contract with CenturyLink for several years now, and it's rolled over on an annual basis. The contract was set to expire in March, so we looked at the providers that had the capacity to serve us, which is Spectrum and CenturyLink, did an informal bid process, and yes, we are getting better service, higher quality service at a reduced price.
And just a side note, did the incumbent bid on this, or did they not?
They did not.
Okay.
The incumbent was Century.
Right.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, sir.
And this isn't new service, this is to replace the existing fiber service.
All right, any other questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion on consent agenda item number 5.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Gregorczyk, second Deaton, that we authorize the city administrator to enter an agreement with Charter Communications Operating LLC for 500 megabits fiber internet service for Gardner City Hall. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Consent agenda item number 5 passes with an emphatic aye from Council Vice President Baldwin. All right, consent agenda item number 7, consider executing an agreement between Water One, Grata, and Gardner associated with the Prairie Trace Water Line Extension Project. Council President.
Sure. I know there was an email regarding some of this. I was wondering if you could just kind of briefly summarize the additional expense or the expense and kind of where we're with it. And then I also had one specific question about, maybe I can ask now, but it mentions in here, Water One should retain full ownership of the main extension, fire hydrants, and other, that word, other stuff. So is that typical that we pay for it all, we put it in, and then they get
Yes.
ownership?
that is.
Okay.
So Water One has the territory. It used to be Rural Water District 5, and they absorbed that water district, which by state statute gives them exclusive rights there. Now, we did approach them early on to see if they would be willing to either sell or swap that territory, and they were not interested in that. We have no recourse. I mean, it's their territory by state statute that they control it. So we had previously done a water study with Water One and Water 7 on doing a, Gons, correct me if this is wrong, an interconnection. So we already had it, when we started this, already had some preliminary designs and costs. So that's how we were able to estimate so closely what the cost would be. Us taking on the cost was part of the development agreement to lure Grata into Gardner.
Sure.
Gave us an opportunity to expand our tax base and all the ancillary things that come with that type of development, additional retail, restaurants, entertainment options for Gardner. So,
Thank you for clarifying that.
sure.
And if I may, Mayor, same consent agenda item. And I don't want to relitigate anything. Again, we talked about this back in October, November of 2019. But I do want to bring up that the estimated tax value is about, what, $260 million?
It's a little north of that actually now.
It might be. I'm getting this information from
Yeah.
Yes, that's
the
correct.
projections of that time. So, I mean, for me, at the end of the day, I think the return on investment is well north of where we want to be, and I mean that in a positive way. Obviously, those agreements, to your point, Jim, are state statute, I believe, so there wasn't much wiggle room.
And there will be some cost recovery through the benefit districts.
Yeah, that was my next
Right,
question.
yeah, so when other customers connect to this line, we'll recover some of those tap fees.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Anything else? Anyone else? Okay. I'll entertain a motion on consent agenda item number 7.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Winters, second, Baldwin, that we authorize the city administrator to execute an agreement between Water One, Grata, and Gardner associated with the Prairie Trace Water Line Extension Project. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Consent agenda item number 7 passes. Consent agenda item number 8, consider authorizing the execution of a contract with Gardner Disposal, Inc. for the 2021 citywide cleanup. This is going to be fun. All right, Todd.
Yeah,
what'd you like?
so-
What you got?
I'm in favor of this. I just kind of wanted to, again, run through some of this. I've had a lot of questions on it. Some of the changes that we're going to make, some of the restrictions, those kind of things, and then kind of where we estimate our tonnage to be and our cost to be.
So last year, before we canceled it due to the budget cuts, the estimate was that we would likely go over $100,000 for this. That's why we put restrictions on it, and Gardner Disposal made a point that if we wouldn't have put those restrictions on, they would not have bid on this. So we would have had no bidders for this collection. You know, you can see that the cost has gone up 600–700% since it started. Now Gardner Disposal does have a program where you can call individually for bulky item pickup, and they gave me a couple examples: $55 for an appliance, $25 for a mattress. So you can do it on your own. But we had to limit the program just to get so that we weren't going to be, had some assurance we weren't going to go over $100,000 for this.
And for most people, it's not going to limit them very much at all. I mean, they're people that want to put some big items out. Now, if you have construction materials and those things, yes. But
Right, and the limit, I believe, is 4 items per household.
Correct. And then this is also going to take place on one day,
No,
with the
2
exception
days.
of, well, but the second day is mostly just for some people we miss. Is that correct?
No, it's for north and south.
Oh, there is north and
Yeah.
south. Okay.
So it's May 8th and May 22nd.
And there's a weekend in between.
Right.
So it's not back-to-back weekends like
Yeah.
it has been in the past.
Right, we
Okay.
tried to time it where it was right a week after the citywide garage sale. That's why I requested dates in May.
And we know that the tradition of the citywide cleanup is pretty established. But we also understand it's becoming very, very expensive. And, there's a lot of folks in town that would like to see us try to keep the costs down, but this is the way we have to do it. I mean, you can't, negotiate out a rate that's not going to allow the person, the entity that's doing the cleanup to be able to make it work for them. So, as Jim stated pretty clearly, we wouldn't have any bidders if we hadn't put those restrictions in place. So, you have anything?
I think Mark does.
Yes, Mark?
Did Gardner Disposal have a minimum? I mean, obviously, we're guaranteeing 40,000, but do they have a minimum before they would even entertain the idea of bidding on it?
My understanding was the 40,000 was the minimum.
Okay.
Yeah, our bid form guaranteed at least 200 tons.
Okay. So, considering that, it's gone up exponentially year over year, and 2019 was 342 tons, we're spending more per ton. I can't imagine that 2 years later we're going to have less tonnage, right? Plus, everybody's been home with COVID and cleaning their homes and everything else, and it's going to be right after your garage sale that you didn't have last year. So I can't imagine this number being anything less than the max that we authorized. So putting that out there, that it's a big number. But I have a problem that this is one of those things that people point to and say, you're not spending my tax dollars wisely. And the reason they point to that is it's not something that benefits everyone. It's not a police department, it's not a park. It's something that everybody could use but won't, right? So I might be subsidizing Steve's trash pickup, Todd might be subsidizing Randy's, and so on. So what I would like to see instead of this is if we move to some sort of a ticketing system and we basically negotiate with Gardner Disposal like we already have with contract and say if we get X number of homes to participate, it will cost X dollars. We'll charge the household that amount. It would still be cheaper than them spending for their 4 items. And then they would have a ticket that they can put on their garbage so that you can't just have everybody put something out that day. Kind of like Casey Moe, used to, or still does, I think, have, a 2-bag limit, and you have to buy more tickets to have more bags out. So I would like to see it that way, and then the people that want to use this service would still be benefiting from the city negotiating the rate, but it's not any tax dollars, and no one's subsidizing someone else.
I do want to clarify, there is no max. So,
Well, I assume that we would put one in when we made the motion.
Yeah, the max would be found in the number of tickets either
No,
available.
I'm talking about this contract.
This year.
For this year, there is no max. So,
Yeah, that'd be a problem.
because they have no way of stopping. I mean, if they get to a point where, it gets weighed when they
Right.
take it to the dump. So there is no max, and there never has been.
Which is one of the problems.
Yeah.
Well, Mark and I talked about this, I think last week sometime over the phone, and much of what he said is what we talked about, so I'm not gonna belabor it, but I think putting in some measures is the prudent thing to do. And I believe, maybe Mark will disagree or agree, but I believe only maybe every 3rd house actually uses, and I'm judging that based on Hawthorne and Maple, about every 3rd house had large, bulky items to be picked up, and then 1 or 2 houses had 0. And to Mark's point, Todd is supplementing my heavy haul garbage that day, et cetera. And I think with the ticketing system, I don't know that a nominal fee needs to be attached to that or what have you, but I think that would drive down the participation and keep our dollars closer to the 40,000 that we've budgeted or called out in this agenda versus 100+ thousand. Because I would agree with Mark, and I think everybody else would agree, because we went through this COVID thing, that we have a ton of stuff that we want to get rid of that we have found that we wouldn't have under normal circumstances, i.e. being home 24 hours a day. And this would be one way to regulate that, and then we can reassess it in the outlying years.
We would have to send this back out for bid. There'd be an administrative burden to do that, whether we take that on with staff or they take it on, but we would have to rebid this.
I'd almost rather do this the way it's proposed this year and then plan for next year if we want to do something differently.
I think it's gonna be hard to communicate this to everybody. People are still gonna put out their trash, whether they have a ticket or not, because it's hard to communicate this. I mean, we have a hard enough time just with energy rates, et cetera. I don't know how you would tell everybody. I know we have ways to tell everybody, but not everybody uses those ways. I mean, I think it'd be hard to communicate it to everybody.
And to that point, my concern is, yes, we have a limited list of what's allowed. That doesn't mean everybody's going to follow it.
That's true.
And it's not up to the collectors to police it. So if I put 5 items out, they're probably going to do 5 items. If I put a couple of bags out, they're probably gonna pick that up. And with no max, who knows what we could spend?
I don't know, I mean, it says they're not supposed to, I mean, they have to follow the rules just like we have to. I mean, the trash company, I mean, if they're only supposed to pick up 4 items, they only pick up 4 items. They're not
Correct.
supposed to pick up bags, they're not gonna pick up bags.
It's more difficult if they have to try to dig through and open stuff.
Right.
So,
All right.
but even going to specific addresses would be burdensome and may not offset whatever costs they have for, labor and trucks and all that stuff.
Because then you've got a whole administrative burden for them.
I don't think there's any extra burden there, because right now they drive up and down the streets and they see a pile and they pick it up. So all they're gonna do is drive up to that spot, see if there's a ticket on that pile, the right ticket, pick it up or not pick it up. Same thing they do now. There's no extra on their end.
Well, we do have multiple garbage pickup companies that come into town, and they don't pick up all the garbage for everybody. I mean, they pick up the garbage that's in the Gardner disposal bins, or in the waste management bins, or the Ottawa bins.
But Mark's not talking about a prescription or a subscription to that trash and service.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about that either. I'm just saying, we do have a situation where we have garbage pickup services that skip addresses that don't
Right.
have the appropriate.
That is, but that's also
packaging.
prearranged by calling and subscribing to that company, and they know to
Mhm.
go to your address. And, I mean, we do have it, but it's also part of their billing cycle and
They
their
manage
process.
that.
Yeah, they
Right.
manage
They
that.
manage that, so.
But it's the same one for every 60 days or whatever their billing cycle is.
Which I guess if you bought a ticket, you could submit it with your address so they could make a plan.
Yeah, they could make the plan if they would like it, but they don't have to if they just wanna drive up and down the street like they do now.
Yeah, because I would see the administrative burden less than the amount of money that the city is gonna spend.
Definitely.
Well, again, are we at a position now where we're saying, okay, we're gonna keep it the way it is this year, because we're pretty close.
I don't think so.
We're pretty close to the date, and if we do this and go back to, remember, we're a month away here.
But is that date a hard and fast date?
Yeah, there's nothing here that we can't discuss this and move it later. I mean, yes, it's historically been after the garage sales, but
Well, it might depend
It doesn't.
on the staffing of Gardner disposal. They probably have tentatively planned to have so many trucks, so many drivers, so many picker-uppers, or whatever they probably have already tentatively planned the staffing, I would think.
and that's fine. They can tell us what weekends work for them, or they can not have the job. I mean, if they don't want to bid it, they won't bid it.
Well, we have a real concern that if you make these changes, there won't be any bidders. And then there
That's
won't be
okay
any-
too.
Okay? If that's what you guys wanna do, then.
I personally would keep it how it's presented in the agenda item for this year.
I would keep it for this year as well. I agree with Tori. I do get a lot of feedback on this, and a lot of
So have I.
positive feedback. I mean,
There were a lot of people that were not happy that it was canceled last year.
I think I heard that they were upset about the pool not opening, and then the second one was the trash pickup. That's the most, of the complaints I got.
I would agree with you.
I'm worried with no max, but 77,000 is a pipe dream that we're looking at double that.
Well, we've approved other items that are not in the budget, so this wouldn't be any different
But
than that.
not open-ended.
No, but.
They all had a not to exceed number.
That's true, but,
But it's not fair to put a not to exceed number because they pick up the south side and then they're like, oh, we hit our budget, and then
I mean, that's something you could go back to them and say, yes, you have to go haul it off, but if you're taking so many trucks and they're driving up to the landfill, they would have to, it would take more time on their part administratively, but they could stop periodically and see what their tonnage is as they're going. Once they hit the max, they hit the max. The problem with that is now half the city or whoever doesn't get picked up. So it'd be whatever route they chose when they were driving around.
yeah, and that's not fair to anybody.
Hence why you buy a ticket.
Except I don't think that we have the time to put that in place this year.
We don't have a hard and fast date for this. We
All right, do we
checked
have-
for
do we
a
have
date.
Consensus on this?
I think we have 3 against.
I don't know, did
Take
Randy,
both.
did you say?
Yeah, I just it's hard for me to support a not-to-exceed number with taxpayer dollars, keeping in mind that the city, which was the right decision, spent just south of $1 million on electricity not 4 months ago. I mean, that's my issue.
Although they're coming out of different funds, you understand.
It's all paid for by the taxpayers / ratepayers. So I just wanted to
So
understand.
do we want to table this?
I
Do we want
just,
to table this for consideration at the next meeting and come back with some options?
I just wanted to understand the temperature, and I know Mark went first, but I support that idea of this ticketing idea,
I can
ticketing process.
have staff communicate with Gardner Disposal and see, kind of get some parameters on what they are and are not willing to do, and come back next council meeting and have that discussion.
Let's do that, and we'll leave it off of consent, and we'll just have it as a regular
Okay.
agenda item at the next meeting. Is that good for everybody? Okay.
So are we looking to completely offset the cost with the tickets?
I would like to see that.
I don't know that I need to see 100% cost recoup, but I think there needs to be a cost, just a cost.
I'd like to see numbers, and if they're the same price for someone to just call them up, then maybe we could look at some offset. If it's cheaper because we're doing it by the, everyone at the same time, then we'll look at that.
Yeah. See, that's the issue, is the bulk rate is a negotiated rate based on a bulk pickup, which means they hit everybody. Am I correct in that, Jim? That's why we got such a good rate.
So one option could be to maybe discount the regular price for each item, because there's a wide range of whether it's an appliance, a mattress, a piece of furniture. So there's a range there. So
That could be a possibility.
maybe if it's a 1 day or 2 day event, maybe they could be willing to discount individual items, so that when people buy a ticket, they can write down what it's supposed to be before they put it on.
Well, I think ultimately, I mean, this has to be a win-win for both, right? Taxpayers and the business. So if we go out there and say, you're only gonna have 3 people pick up, well, that's not a whole lot of burden for them. If we say all 8,000 households are gonna be a pickup, that might be a problem. They say, we don't even wanna touch it, right? So I think the real question for Gardner Disposal will be, what does it take for you to do this job, right? What number do you need to
What's the
see for
guarantee?
it to be worth it to you to get
What's
your
the
staffing, to have your dates, to come out, right? And then based off that number, we could look at pricing that would, depending on what that number is and an estimated pickup, we could have where we request people to submit if they're gonna be in the pickup, right, for the ticket type of thing. And we would know how much per person that would cost now. And we
Right.
could see how does that compare to the normal rate.
So in order for us to get the bulk rate, which is what this whole thing is about, getting the bulk rate for pickup here. What if, and again, we're speculating here, so bear with me on this one. What if Gardner Disposal says, okay, well, we want the city to backstop the first 40,000. And then, yeah, we can do all sorts of tickets if you want. We can ticket, we can, do all these other things, but the city's gonna have to guarantee the first 40,000. Is that going to be acceptable?
Depends on the number of tickets you sell.
Well, no, it wouldn't, because we're gonna backstop the first 40,000 regardless of how many tickets.
We don't have to. We could say, Gardner Disposal, you need 40,000 to do this job? Okay, we will put out for 2 weeks for people to sign up for their tickets. And if we meet a minimum of 1,000 tickets, then that's $40 a person, and they're willing to pay that. Done deal. If we only sell 50 tickets, now it's pretty expensive for those people and it doesn't make sense. We could set that based off the rate we want to charge those people.
Except that the bulk rate doesn't make sense for Gardner Disposal at that point.
No, they're getting their 40,000. What do they care how it comes?
Okay.
Right? They're willing to do a service for a fee. We provide said fee, regardless of if we are collecting it or we're paying for it as a city. Either way.
I think you're gonna see a big backlash on that.
Yeah. And to
Huge
Tori's,
backlash.
to Tori's point, I see like 50 people signing up. If you tell them that they're going to save 15% or 20% or a small amount of money, I don't know. I mean, then you may not have that many, and then
So then you see that you're actually subsidizing 10% of the city.
Well, all this being said, the data that we glean from this would tell us how good the program is at the end of the day. Because right now, we have zero information to make a good decision from the dais. Honestly.
But
And
we
it's
don't
good
have a lot of
intentions.
feedback. We don't have a lot of feedback because Public Works and Gardner Disposal really weren't sharing that information as far as I know. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not something that we've tracked in the past, so.
But that's my point, is that it's provided with good intentions, but we have no data to understand if this is where we need to provide, or what this is the service we need to provide. There may be other services out there that we can provide to the city at large that affects a greater part of the population.
Of course.
So,
Right, 100,000 is another police officer or car.
Hopefully more than one. Okay, well, we're gonna go on ahead and put this on the next agenda. We'll come up with some approaches, get some numbers.
I'll motion to table this issue.
All right, you got a motion to table, any second?
Second.
Motion Gregorczyk, second Baldwin, that we table agenda item number 8 for consideration at the next council meeting. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? That's consent agenda item 8 is tabled. All right, there's nothing on planning and zoning consent, nothing in committee recommendations or old business. New business item number 1, consider accepting a voluntary annexation with landowner consent. David Knopick, you're gonna take it from there, huh?
I'm going to take it from here because there's no formal presentation to give on this item. This is a petition that's been given to us by a property owner in the area. It is just to the west of the Hilltop Ridge development that is going in place. Utilities are going in now. The purpose is that the individual may want to hook to utilities when they become available, and to do that, they need to be within the city limits. So,
Okay. So that's Sean Hatton who's doing this, and this is out at Gardner's Lake, is that correct? No, it's not.
no,
No,
this is
west
this
on
is
167th.
west, yeah, on 167th Street, west of Hilltop Ridge.
Ah,
across from
yes,
Sippy
my
Farms.
apologies, yes, it told me that. Okay, any questions for, actually, I'll open it up for public comments. Any public comment on new business item number 1? I wouldn't expect any, it seems to be cut and dry. Any questions for David or anybody else? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on new business item number 1.
So moved.
second.
Motion Deaton, second Winters, that we accept the voluntary consent annexation request of Sean Hatton and adopt ordinance number 2696, an ordinance annexing land into the city of Gardner, Kansas. Since this is an ordinance, we have to have a roll call. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Winters,
Yes.
Councilmember Gregorczyk,
yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton,
Yes.
All right, ordinance 2696 passes. Moving on to new business item number 2. Consider adopting an ordinance amending section 9.20.020 subsection A of the Gardner Municipal Code relating to exemptions to open burn permits. City Administrator, good evening.
Good evening. Received an email, I believe everybody got the email from a resident about the prohibition in our current code for burning on Sundays and holidays. I looked into it, I contacted Chief Kirk to ask him about the history of that, and he said that it's been in place for 40, 50 years, that we are the outlier, that we are the only ones that do that. They had a special permit just for Gardner because of that, and he recommended that we change that and allow it on Sunday and federal holidays, that there's no practical reason at this point for that to continue.
Just one of those community standard things
Yes.
that was done way back in the day, and yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Stay right there. I'll open it up for public comment. Looks like we do have a representative from the fire district here, so if anyone wishes to come forward, please come forward now. All right. Any questions for the city administrator? Looks like you might have had one. Councilman.
Yeah, I did receive the email, like I think the rest of us did. I appreciated Jim's due diligence in reaching out to Chief Kirk. Yeah, I mean, this is an example of the good old days, you know, where they honored a holiday and folks didn't work, they were home with their family. But I appreciate that. I guess the only question I'd have is they would still have a burn permit and go through that process.
That's correct.
If Randy wanted to do it on Labor Day as an example, I'd go down, fill out my burn permit, whatever fees are associated, schedule it, be done with
And
it.
that's all through the fire department, that's correct.
I want to thank you, because I had forwarded the email to you and Steve. I don't know that you two were on it.
Yep.
And this was very quick. You were on it, got it fixed, and I appreciate that. And the interesting thing was, when I was reading the email, I literally smelled somebody burning on that Sunday. And I looked out and I saw somebody. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. But thank you very much for the prompt attention.
You're welcome.
I think a lot of people didn't even realize that there was a prohibition.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a lot of that out there before, so. Of course,
There's no reason for us to.
we're burning a lot on the 4th of July now, so. Yeah. All right, anything else? All right, I'll entertain a motion on new business item number 2.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion Gregorczyk, second Baldwin, that we adopt ordinance number 2697, an ordinance amending section 9.20.020, subsection A of the Gardner Municipal Code relating to the exemptions to open burning prohibitions. City Clerk.
Councilmember Gregorczyk,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton,
Yes.
Councilmember Winters,
Yes.
All right, ordinance 2697 passes. That's the end of new business and the regular council agenda. We'll move on to council updates. Does staff have anything for council? I'm going to start with our globetrotting Public Works Director, Kellen Headley.
Nothing for tonight.
Glad to see you got here back from Virginia. So, all right, David Knopick, Development.
We do have an EDAC meeting. Actually, it'll be 2 weeks. No, next week. It'll be next week, Wednesday. It'll be at the Justice Center, so just be aware of a little bit of a venue change on that. That's all I have for tonight. Oh, I will be out of the office the next 4 days. So Bob Case is the guy. If you got any problems, give him a call.
Bob is
Literally,
the man.
give him a call.
Bob is the man. I'll let him know that you dumped all your stuff to him. So I'm sure he appreciates it. All right, Jason Bruce, Parks and Rec.
No, sir, nothing tonight.
Nothing tonight. We're still on track for pool opening in May. Hey, you know, I have to ask these things.
We are hoping to open in some way, shape, or form. We just don't know when, how, fine print, all that good stuff. So, still working on staffing, training, things of that nature. Still in communication with other area agencies as well as the county on how to do it safely.
Okay, thank you. All right, Gons Garcia, Utilities. You've been a very busy man lately.
Two things. First one is Hillsdale expansion. We're completing the actual construction of most of the new components. We should be starting startups or functional checks starting this week, and that should go through May, and hoping to have a substantial completion by the end of May.
Okay.
Second one is we have the eminent domain hearing for the Prairie Trace Force Main scheduled for Wednesday, April 7th at 10 a.m.
Okay, great.
Hopefully that will go our way.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, Chief Belcher.
Nothing tonight?
Nothing tonight. City Clerk.
nothing for me.
Yeah, we're back restaffed and everything, I believe. We've got a week period that we're waiting on public on comment from the council on the 2 new appointments for Planning Commission. You all received that email, correct? So you'll be able to provide your thoughts, and then we'll have 2 new planning commissioners next meeting. So, all right, Finance Director Matt Wolf.
Excuse me, Mayor. I don't recall receiving an email to that.
Well, you were part of the interview team.
Yes.
So.
Oh, okay, I'm following you. Thank you.
Yeah, if you're part of the interview team, you probably don't get the email, but yeah, the rest yeah. Oh no, sorry. Matt Wolf.
Nothing tonight.
Nothing tonight. Deputy City Administrator Nasta.
Nothing tonight.
Nothing tonight. Oh boy, he's leaning into the microphone. All right, city attorney, what we got?
I did have some follow-up. As you'll recall, I was absent at the last meeting. I know that there was a lot of discussion about our elections charter ordinance. Sharon forwarded to me the three options, at least as I understand them, that you all were considering. That being to serve out the term of the individual to whose position you're appointed to, and then obviously different iterations of how you prioritize people for any of these. The second being that you would serve until the next general election, and then the third was kind of the special election discussion. And so, you know, I looked at after Sharon shared all that with me, I looked at the three options, and you know, I expressed kind of some of my thoughts on them. You know, I think the first two options are fairly straightforward, but I do have some real concerns about the special election provision. I think it could be exceedingly confusing, particularly for voters, and for several reasons. You've got some people running for 2-year terms, some people running for 4-year terms. I don't know that we have the ability to say that someone could not file both for a 2-year term and a 4-year term, because qualifications for office are prescribed by state statute. So, you know, if they were elected to be in consistent office, but I don't know that they couldn't file for both positions, which I think it would be very confusing for the voters. So I have a lot of concerns about that special election piece. The easiest and most straightforward, I think, is the kind of the way we've been doing it. But that said, option 1 or option 2 are viable paths. We've talked about option 2. It's really not an issue that I can comment on. It's more of a policy determination of the staggered tenures. But that's you know, Sharon shared all that information with me, and I thought I'd express some of my concerns at least on that third option. And, you know, if I misunderstood kind of any of the way that you all were envisioning that third option to work, you know, please share that with me. I'll be happy to look at, you know, other alternatives as well.
Well, the only thing is, in order to have staggered terms, you have to treat that seat differently than the other seats. Because if you just go, okay, we're going to have a person serving 18 months, and then they're going to be up for election, and it's going to have to be for 4 years because all the other positions are also 4 years. Now you've wrecked the staggering, because you can't have, you know, 4 members of the council up for one election cycle, and then only 1 council member and the mayor open up for another one. That's going to make things very, very confusing and difficult. You know, that basically destroys the spirit of staggering. Am I not correct in that?
Yeah, and I guess maybe I'd ask for some clarification on that comment. I mean, if you went with option 1, then the staggers stay in place.
Absolutely.
Right. So, and I do want to clarify just kind of what I read from the record. When you're referring to a special election, you're not referring to calling an election at a time other than the
No.
general election. Okay.
It'll be during the
You're
general
just
election.
saying it would be early for that term.
Correct.
Okay.
That's why it has to be special, and it would only be for 2 years. So all the other positions would be for 4 years, but in order to keep the staggering, that particular seat has to be a 2-year, which means it has to be considered differently, which is exactly what you stated. You have to apply for that separately from the other 3 seats, or the 2 seats. Yeah. Am I not correct in that? I mean, that's what you have to do in order to keep the staggering.
So leave it as is.
Any thoughts?
It keeps the staggering.
Yeah, I think staggering is important. I would leave it as is.
I mean, I've spoke my piece. I think that the community deserves the opportunity, as Mark said, to elect their officials versus an appointment. And again, I'm a product of an appointment, but I only served out, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 months. And that was that gentleman's seat coming due anyway. But that's my opinion. It really has nothing to do with the who, it's more of a what thing for me.
Well, the what here is that we either have the staggering maintained through having an individual serve out the term, or you have to have a special election, which is going to be, you have to consider that seat separately from the other seats that are up for regular election.
So that would be serve out till next general? Is that the way I understood it?
No, it would not be, because if you do just next general, then you break the stagger, because you can't say that, okay, we're gonna have 4 seats up for election, and, 3 of them are gonna be for 3 years, and 4 years, and 1 of those will be for 2 years.
Well, I think some of the assumption as well is that the person who was appointed will run for election. Well, that's not required.
Correct.
So you could have three people submit for an 18-month term, or a 2-year term, and then the same 3 people file for a 4-year term.
Yeah.
And qualifications for office are established by state statute. So I don't know that we could prevent that.
State statute at this point allows people to run for more than 1
Correct.
seat.
And if they were elected, you can't hold more than a council seat. Those are considered inconsistent offices.
Correct.
You also can't be a mayor and a council member. Those are inconsistent offices. But until you're elected to the seat, you don't hold the office.
Exactly.
You hold an inconsistent seat.
Yep.
So you run for both, and then we're still having an appointment process. If you win both.
Potentially.
See,
Right, because if somebody wins both seats and they choose the 4-year, then we're still appointing somebody to a 2-year.
Yep.
Do we not have a way to home rule out? At least make a requirement that you can't run for 2 offices? I mean, that simplifies a lot of this conversation.
I'm just curious how often this comes up. Like, obviously, I know
Almost never.
I'm the person that is serving 3-year term, but how often does somebody
Well,
leave before halfway
had-
through their term?
well, when we had, what did we have, 4 appointed members, and what was it?
Yes, we did.
2011?
2010,
Or-
2011.
yeah.
Yep.
It has happened, it hasn't happened.
But were those
recently.
appointed before the halfway mark?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. 2 of actually 3 of those 4 seats were. No, 2 of them. 2 of them were. It was.
And that was just me being curious how
yeah.
often it comes up.
In Gardner, it's happened way more often than many other
Yeah, unfortunately,
municipalities.
we're not the,
I personally,
Yeah,
I think it'll-
but at most municipalities, they use the serve out the rest of the term model. I mean, that's the one that virtually every municipality in the metro uses.
well, I appreciate you looking into it, Ryan.
I appreciate you looking into it too. I, of course, am still where I think you should serve to the next general election. And I don't know that we have to stagger. I know that's what we've always done, but why do you have to stagger?
Well, the
Because you don't
reason-
want complete turnover of your council in one election.
Well, hopefully the people that are running have done their homework and their research and know what's going on. And, I mean, I don't know. As long as you have good qualified people running, which we normally do, I don't think a staggered situation I don't know why we have to stagger.
I don't know, as the only city in the county that's ever had a successful recall election, I think there's concern there.
Yeah. I agree. I'm for continuity, and if you have everybody up for election in one cycle, that screws continuity. I'm sorry, it just does. It creates a lot of uncertainty. But that's just my piece.
Yeah, that's a policy decision.
Mm-hmm.
So that's for you all to decide.
All right. Well, what's the consensus, people?
Leave it as is with the staggering.
Yeah, leave it as is my thought.
Yeah, I'd want to take a look at it down the road. Leave it as is.
So with that, do you still want us to clarify the as-is? Because there was some confusion on
Yes.
what that meant. So go back to the first order of business, which is clarify the existing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Please do.
And let's get some examples, some apples to apples examples with other municipalities, just to see how they're managing this.
Yeah, that's what I was interested in early on.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, city attorney? No. Okay. All right, city administrator.
So I've got a couple things. Staff's been working on CIP and budget. There was some discussion, I believe, last month about doing a work session on CIP. And that primarily was to focus on our wastewater solution. We have had multiple discussions with KDHE and with GBA, our consultant to this point. We did the anti-degradation study, went through potential designs for a wastewater treatment plant on the south side, and KDHE has come back and limited the size and our ability to introduce additional nutrients into the Hillsdale watershed to the point where that solution is no longer feasible. So the idea of shifting funds from the Kill Creek expansion to a new wastewater plant, some of that is still on the table, but we have to look at additional options with regard to if we do build a wastewater plant on the south side, where we take the effluent. KDHE has asked us to look at pumping it 5 miles to the east to Sweetwater, which we don't believe is a feasible option. There's some other things we're looking at with effluent, but the bottom line is limiting the size of the plant to 750,000 gallons with no potential to expand in the future does us absolutely no good.
Absolutely.
So to expand Kill Creek for our future needs the next 10 to 15 years, we're going to have to install parallel lines and do some other things to get rid of the bottlenecks that we currently have and that will get worse. So we are revisiting all the options and excluding the Hillsdale watershed is an option. So instead of doing what I'm trying to get to is instead of doing a work session for CIP at this point, it would be premature. So Matt's just going to do a presentation at the next council meeting, and then we'll revisit wastewater when we get more clarity on options going forward.
Oh, so he gave that job to you, huh? Good luck.
The other item I have is Dave Nopick and I met with Lime electric scooters last week. The mayor was approached by Bird Scooters, which are the 2 biggest players in the industry. Before we get down the line with those proposals and start putting in staff time for permitting and licenses, because e-scooters have proven to be a divisive issue in communities, I wanted to get a feel for if the council is even interested in hearing those proposals and what that might mean. Even though we're working towards a more walkable community, as far as bikes and e-scooters, which commonly share the same space, we're not as conducive to those modes of transportation because of our road network, a lot of streets with no curbs. They typically restrict sidewalk access. The few cities that do allow sidewalk access, which would probably include our trail system here, which we are developing, you have to yield to pedestrians, but they've been deemed a nuisance in many places. And it's just, if you look at our downtown, they're talking about a program that starts with 50 to 75 scooters. They do have geofencing, they do have speed controls, but it's just something that it's going to take time to develop a system, identify an area, permitting all those things, and before we got down that road, I wanted to get some feedback from council.
Did Lime, because I wasn't part of the Lime discussion, but I was definitely part of the Bird discussion. I have a feeling it was the same general discussion topics. I did send you the information on the Bird. Did they stated that all they were looking for was permits. They weren't looking for any subsidy or anything like that.
No subsidy.
No money from the city's perspective, but.
And I would recommend we do. The Lime individual said that a city this size having 2 operators would be problematic. So you probably do an RFP to see who. What they do is they locate them in positions where they think they'll be most used, and then over experience they'll move them to different places. if they get abandoned, they have people go pick them up, charge them, take them back to where they're supposed to be. And they charge by the minute. You enter in an app, a credit card, and I believe it was something like 31 cents a minute, something like that. There's a small percentage that use them as conveyance to work. Most of it is just for leisure. You have to be 16 years old to ride. You have to be over 18 to ride without a helmet. But typically they are in the street, just as a bike would be. And you don't really see, I mean, our business district, you don't really see a lot of bikes on 56 highway. So we would have to identify an area where, it made sense for us.
You'll see the bikes on Washington, you'll see the bikes sometimes on Shawnee, on the side streets, which again, might constitute a nuisance for some people.
I don't see the need for something. I mean, I think it's a little bit premature until we really look at the downtown redevelopment and start proceeding with that. I just see a bunch of.
I don't either. I mean, I think our roads don't, like, survive, I mean, we're not, like, good for that right now.
Yeah, no bike lane.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we don't
Really
have,
an
we're
urban-
not set up for it.
And we don't have like downtown parking. Like I know some areas that have these bikes. You park downtown, grab a bike, and then you go around. We have nowhere to park downtown, so I'd have to like walk from my house to grab a bike. At that point, I've already walked half the distance.
Well, and
Yeah.
we don't have, to my knowledge,
Well, I mean,
a big group of citizens requesting this. This is the business coming in, so it
So are
seems
we-
like it's premature.
So are we talking about a regulation that would say that we would prohibit this kind of
Well,
transportation
they've
mode for
kind of
now?
changed their business model. Early on, they used to just go in a city, not say anything, and just put them down,
Yep,
and then walk away. But they've kind of evolved from that practice. So
Yeah, I used them in San Diego when I was out there for a month and a half on and off. And quite frankly, I almost killed myself. And I was in the lane,
yeah,
and I did not have a helmet on. But it ran out of juice, and I almost catapulted myself. But to that point, it's in a downtown area. I was going to the gas lamp district, which is similar to the power and light district. And it has a good use, don't get me wrong, but I would agree with Todd. I think it's premature for our community at this time because we don't have the infrastructure, generally speaking, that would promote and support that market, if you will. And I mean, I wrote it down to San Diego Bay, and my point is, it's not about me, it's about the mode of transportation to get to somewhere that's kind of in walking distance, to Casey's point, park and ride. And we just don't have those types of attractions at this point that would, in my mind, support that.
and if you allow them on the sidewalks and trails, you're diminishing the walkability that we're trying to establish here.
Well, and then safety pops into my head.
yeah, coming around that bend at the Greenway and like, head-on collision with a bicycle.
Well, or just running a light here at Gardner and Maine.
Yeah.
Kill somebody.
So I've dealt with this in other municipalities. Nobody allows them on sidewalks because of the speeds that they can
Yep.
approach.
Get those suckers
Somebody
at 20
opens
miles an
a
hour.
commercial door, and this guy's going 25 miles an hour on a bird scooter.
Yep.
That's a bad speed. So the other thing that I've dealt with is on hike and bike trails. Johnson County Parks and Rec started a program where they were encouraging e-bikes, but not bird scooters. So I've looked at that for a couple of my other jurisdictions. We did not allow bird type scooters on hiking and biking trails. And then finally, the Uniform Public Defense Code, the legislature changed the state statute where cities are permitted to prohibit bird type scooters on the operation of their streets. So state statute, I think they amended it last year, maybe the year before, they anticipated that this was coming. And there's a vehicle in place where you can make it illegal.
So are we planning on going down that route for now until we can have a chance to look at our downtown plan? I mean, I think the consensus is that we're not ready.
Well, if they're not coming in and dropping them off, I don't see any place that could sit there for 50 years and nobody knows why it's there. So I don't think we need to do anything right now. If they start becoming a problem and drop them off, well, okay.
And I've got contact information for both of them, so I'll reach out to them tomorrow.
And just to that point, if you don't mind, Mayor, Chief Belcher, if the officers saw the scooters dropped off, and we all know that we haven't agreed to it, the officers would just kind of bird that, no pun intended, and then you would call them and say, hey, come pick up your stuff. Okay.
Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, most of those things have GPS on them, so if somebody were trying to like steal them, is that what you're getting at, council member? Somebody
No,
trying to
sir.
No, he's talking about
Like
them
if they
dumping
were
them
in-
and leaving them for people.
If they were in Olathe and for some reason decided to ride all the way to Gardner and ditched it, they'd have GPS and they could come get it.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know why you would ride it.
Yeah,
that
and
far, but-
they actually have, and I can't remember what the term they use, but they have people go around and every night pick them up if they're.
I think they're
low
bird
charge.
chargers.
That's what they're called.
Yeah.
Ornithologists.
And you have an app and you get paid for it.
Yeah.
For every
Yeah.
one you pick up and put on a
Yeah,
truck.
$3 each.
All right, so I think we've got direction from the council on that one. Thanks, Jim. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. All right, first of all, before I move into council updates for staff, I wanted to make clarification of a statement I made last meeting. I promised Mayor Roberts I would do this. There was a discussion that was going on regarding fire district appointments, and I mistakenly made the comment that I had spoken with Don. I did not speak with Don Roberts on this. I'd actually spoken with Shirley, and she had let me know that Don had talked to her on this issue, and I wanted to be cognizant of that and fulfill my promise to Mayor Roberts that I would make that clarification and correction here at the dais. So just want to let you know that I did misspeak, and it was not intentional. I just wanted to make sure that that was on record. So let's move on to council updates for staff. Councilman Gregorczyk, I'll start with you.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and I'll take that apology as a segue, and I appreciate appreciate and respect you for pointing that out, because I found even at that moment it was odd, but nonetheless, thank you for pointing that out. I've got a couple of items. Jim or Matt, and I believe Todd may have some follow-up to this, but I'm curious at what the Q4 2020 transient guest tax budget looks like. Not budget, but revenue. I'm also curious as to what the Q1 of 2021 is, so this past January, February, and March. You probably would have Q4 now, but you may not have Q1 quite yet. I know my numbers at work are still coming in from that quarter, but and then I was wondering, same thing, transient guest tax. If we could understand what the contributions are of that revenue stream and what the difference is. So if, let's say it's 150,000, I'm making this up, for Q1 of 2021, and we have an outgoing promise to Johnson County Economic Development, or Southwest Johnson County, I apologize, and the Chamber of 100,000, that means there's 50,000 in that transient guest tax. I don't need it tonight, Matt, but if maybe over the next couple of 3 days, that'd be great.
Maybe in a Friday minute memo, we could have that summarized and put out to the council. That'd be good information to have. Thank you.
Mayor, thank you again, and we haven't talked before tonight, but for the segue. So I'm going to the Friday minute memo that was sent out this past Friday. And I'm talking about the update from City Administrator Jim Pruding. And I just wanted to kind of clarify that the subcommittee met, and it's all documented here, so I'm not reading anything that's new, maybe new to the citizens, but I just wanted to touch on 2 points that the subcommittee talked about. I want to read it verbatim. there was two primary options discussed to mitigate the impact where the use of the electric fund to offset part or all the additional power cost and spreading the cost adjustment over a longer period of time. My back of the napkin math for the PCA for about a 12-month period is probably going to be between $20 and $30. Again, Matt or somebody else that knows can tell us, but that's my back of the napkin. I'm just wondering if there was any other discussion that came out of that subcommittee that we could share from the dais that would kind of give our community a warm and fuzzy as to where we're headed, knowing, and Jim, you can speak to this, knowing that the numbers really aren't in. I think we've gotten some credits and all kinds of stuff has gone on with this. And there's multiple lawsuits, et cetera. So I know there's a lot out there that's not been confirmed. But specifically to the city of Gardner, was there any more information outside of what was documented in the memo that would be worth discussing or knowing?
And Mark may be able to add to this. Most of it was, we looked at what we generally considered a manageable PCA increase. And because the increase was relatively manageable, we thought that people that either are or may in the future have difficulty with that there are services available to help them pay for their utility services. So we just this year increased our contribution from 15 to 25,000, and there still are funds available. Gardner, the county, and the state, and you can get a pretty substantial subsidy for utilities. And we discussed because we monitor that, if those funds are depleted, that it would be a better use of our funds to just supplement whatever that fund is to help people that are in need. We have a lot of, this is part of a bigger discussion about our infrastructure, utility infrastructure. And there's a number of things, and I know the electric fund is large. It's just sitting out there, but there are things on the horizon that are going to be very expensive with regard, particularly with wastewater, that we could potentially offset with lowering electric rates to spend down that fund to offset some of the increase that we're going to have in sewer rates. So doing this and depleting the fund to a large degree now, while the fund the increases are manageable, seem premature.
And I've always been of the opinion, and I appreciate that, Jim, the explanation. I've always been of the opinion that the electric fund have a balance necessary to support the electric department. So we're talking about equipment that you have to have specially made, and it's 9 to 18 months out, et cetera. I'm also of the opinion that we only spend a portion of the pilot, payment in lieu of taxes, on other utilities. And I also would agree that we don't want to deplete that fund just because it's out there. It's money. It's not money burning a hole in anybody's pocket. It is truly a savings account. These are my words, for those catastrophic situations and or those large lifts that you talk about. And I would rather see us reduce the electric rates, supplementing out of maybe a portion out of the electric fund in order for the taxpayers not to have 100% of that burden based on the growth that we have and or just the general preventative maintenance that we need to do as we speak. So I appreciate that explanation.
And I also want to clarify that the sustainability of our utility infrastructure is not just dependent on our expansion on the east side of the highway. We have needs now with Kill Creek that we were going to transfer to a new plant, but there's still substantial needs for our Kill Creek plant. So it's not that we are spending money solely on the east side. It's all, if you look at it financially responsible with our utility funds, we need to look at our rates and what our ratepayers pay in the aggregate as we go through these different phases of, improving water, improving electric, and ultimately improving sewer. Because they're gonna fluctuate. If we can keep it as close to where we're at now, we will be in much better shape in the long term.
And we've got some flexibility on the electric rates, and we also understand that Wiggs Water has never made money. It doesn't make money. It's like our parks department. Nothing against the parks, but it's sorry, but
Stay on point.
No, but I mean it's something that our citizens need, and it's something that our citizens appreciate, being able to flush their toilets. It also doesn't make a lot of fiscal. It's not a moneymaker at all from a fiscal perspective. So.
Can I ask?
Go ahead,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Regarding the PCA, is there a way to individually allow people to extend the time period to pay that back? For instance, the all-electric houses that are probably going to have a pretty substantial. Can you individually spread that out, maybe to 2 years instead of 1 year?
I wish Amy was here. I believe she discussed that last time.
Yeah.
I can bring her back.
I think there's that opportunity.
They're making individualized payment arrangements right now with everybody
Okay.
in that
Yeah.
category.
We have the normal, just like we did last time we had a fiasco, where there's no one that's getting shut off. Everybody is eligible for the equal payment plan, so
Yep.
you can spread it over 12 months. Anybody. It used to be you had to qualify for that.
Yep.
And even though the all electric you would think are getting hit hard, they are, but 80% of the community is gas, and your gas bill's going to get hit.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I wouldn't say that all electric is unique in this situation.
Although I will say the gas bill, that's where a lot of that legal action is coming from right now.
Yeah, there's 7 lawsuits by KCC.
KCC is watching it like a hawk, and they're gonna try to see what happens on the market side. They think that there was some gouging going on. I wouldn't necessarily blame them. So, all right. Anything else?
Were you gonna bring this up, Mayor?
Yes, I'll bring.
That's all I had, sir, thank you.
All right, no problem. Councilwoman Roberts.
I have nothing. Thank you for asking.
Great. Councilwoman Deaton.
Nothing for me.
Nothing. Council Vice President.
I just wanted to thank Gons and the line maintenance crew for looking into the potential issue with the main that was, a week and a half ago for that individual. So thank you for providing great service for that. That's all I had.
Council President.
Nothing for me. No.
Nothing from you. Okay, I've got 3 items. First of all, I didn't get a chance to ask you, Kellen. I don't know how much discussion you've had with the state regarding the letting schedule for US 56 reconstruction. Looks like it's been pushed back again, and it's on their part now this time. Do we have a hard date at this point for starting that project? I know you just got it.
I do not, but I can get that.
Yeah, I think we need to really continue to put the pressure
Yeah,
on those
and
guys.
the letting that just got officially announced, we've known about that for a few months now.
Yeah.
So, and we discussed it before that it was going to be, the letting was going to be in June and construction would start sometime in July.
Yeah, but now
And
it's August.
Yeah, well, no, I still believe it's July. The letting's in June. So we should start in July, and then the timeline, it should take almost exactly a year to finish the whole project.
So we're working through the winter. That'll be interesting, because they're gonna have to pour a lot of concrete on that. They're not gonna do it, they're not gonna pave it with asphalt. They're gonna do concrete, are they not? Yeah, so a lot of that work's not gonna be done in the winter, because it's not gonna set right.
So was it pushed back or not? Because the way I remember it, it wasn't.
No, it was pushed back. The original letting date was November, and then it got moved to March or April,
Yeah.
and then it was and I had this conversation before Kellen got here, but the local manager told me that the original timeline wasn't realistic, and that's why it got moved to
Okay.
June.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I just wanna make sure that we stay to that date, so if that means we have to have additional conversations with KDOT to make sure that they adhere to that. So let's get that done. Second thing is, I did get an email here from Missy Brown with Project Grad, and I'll just read it out to you. I know sometimes these needs to go through a budget meeting, but I'm not sure that people in charge did that when it was time. we're hoping the city could possibly help us out. And as many of you know, we've already had issues with COVID that have kind of suppressed donations to Project Grad, and it's a big deal for a lot of our seniors to have that evening where they can, like, you know, have fun in a safe way and get some cool presents and gifts and those kind of things. And they depend on donations to get that done. This year the donations are way under where they were last year, and so they would like to see if the city of Gardner could help with some of that. I know we have about $19,000 in our mayor council donations budget right now. And so I was thinking that we could possibly, you know, send a couple $1,000s their way, but I wanted to clear it through the council. I didn't think it would be a big issue, but I wanted to do this in interest of transparency. So.
No, I appreciate that gesture. It's refreshing. What have we done in the past, Matt? Because I know we did something last. Was it last year?
Usually around 1,500 to 2,000.
Yeah. So we might be able to bump that up a little more. I just didn't know what the sense of the council was on that.
Do we, so there's 19,000 in the budget, do we spend most of that every year, or does it just depend, or?
It's only the information I'd love.
Yeah.
We did last year.
Okay. I would be for the donation, but I would I would be open to more than 2,000 if our budget would support it.
Okay. At least that's what it was a couple weeks ago when I looked at it. it might have been some money out of that, but I don't think there was.
I saw the 1,500 for donations. Project graduation.
From last year was 1,500.
That's how much was spent.
Yeah.
Well, I know these seniors have had a hell of a year, so.
Yeah.
I'd be open for 3,000, double what we did last year.
3,000.
0. It is not my position to specify for 25,000 people whether or not they want to donate to Project Grad or any other charitable cause.
Noted. This is the mayor council donations budget line item. It's under administration. How much is in there right now?
I'm only showing the $1,500 budgeted. That's what we also spent for the project graduation.
No, I'm talking about the mayor council.
Oh, the total budget.
Yes.
Excluding salaries, it's $89,190.
That's how much we have in our fund?
No.
In your mayor and council division.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's actually a donations line item that does not include Project Grad. It's toward the bottom.
If you can't find it, we could strike it from the budget.
Actually, I'm looking at it in 2021. You actually don't have a budget for that project graduation.
Yeah, but
it ended in 2020.
Yeah, we had an open line for just general donations and support. I'll get it for you later, but we'll.
So let me clarify, those that are donating to the mayor's fund, what is their understanding of where those funds would be used?
This is not the mayor's Christmas fund.
Okay,
This is
that's
taxpayer
separate.
dollars.
This is separate.
Oh, I was under the impression
No.
it was donated money.
Mm-mm.
That's why I wanted to clarify what
No,
they were
it is
donating
not.
for
It
to
is
be
not.
reallocated
It is not.
outside of
Nope, it is not.
fireworks and
It
droids.
is not. It is not. You're gonna keep bringing up that drones thing.
Or drones, that's right.
Yeah. Well,
I baited you, I guess, good enough.
yeah, you did, baby. That's all right. Noted. Okay, so we'll get back to you on that number and see, but I know the Project Grad could use the help. They did reach out to the city to see if they could push in a couple of dollars. All right. Last thing I had was and I believe all of you have a picture at your chair. I see this from Rachel Keel. They live at 16281 South Kill Creek Road, which is Symphony Farms. they were looking to see if there'd be a possibility that, that the tornado siren that's literally outside their door and leaning over their house, I don't know if they can see this on the camera, but that's what it looks like right there. Can be relocated so that they don't have massive decibels of tornado sirens going off on a regular basis. We do test those. In fact, we've got another test coming up this coming Wednesday, as a matter of fact. They contacted me directly. They were aware that the city administrator lived in the neighborhood and didn't want to create any kind of a conflict of interest. So I decided I'd just bring it right to the council. It would cost about $4,000, $4,500 to move this.
Okay, his yard?
We have a couple of locations that are right in that neighborhood that would still serve this.
So would it go maybe across the street, south of the school parking lot?
So Blue Valley Public Safety runs the program.
Yeah.
And so there's a right-of-way that goes down to the south that's not directly adjacent to any homes that I think is probably the best location, but we would have to go through that process with them.
Would that be at our expense?
So it costs $4,500 for Blue Valley Public Safety to move the equipment. The equipment is ours, but they have to move it and certify it. So we may have to do the work on the pole. I'm not exactly sure, but the cost for Blue Valley would be $4,500.
That's to uproot, relocate, and replant the pole.
No, I'm not sure about the pole, whether we would move that if we own the pole. Gons, do you know?
My understanding is that we will be responsible for the pole.
Okay.
Yeah. So we wouldn't have to pay for that, but obviously we'd pay for it in manpower. But it's just for the equipment, is basically what you're saying. No?
Correct.
Is there any other examples in new or existing? I mean, this is new.
Yeah, I looked at sort of the location of our sirens. They are typically in proximity to residential areas, but that one is particularly close, and they're usually not at the front of a house. They're usually near the backs of houses. I actually, the home I moved from in Kansas City I had a siren really close to me. So
Well, the
really-
reason why I'm asking, Jim, is because we would set a precedence.
Exactly.
I'm not opposed to it. Please
Yeah,
don't misunderstand me.
And I
But we
looked
would
at
set a
that
precedent.
to see if it was, this one is the closest one I saw, and it's the only one I saw that was right in front of somebody's front door.
Yeah, usually they're in the right of way, and this is really close.
Did this just get positioned because maybe it was there before houses were
Yes.
built?
Yes. And the homeowner says that she was told that it would be moved when the new school went in. But she said the person's not here anymore, and that was 5 years ago.
That's typically how that works.
Well, but that also makes sense.
Yep.
I mean, despite the who.
No. They usually are in the right of way. This one is not in the right of way, or it's leaning over into her yard. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, we would have to, at the very least, we'd have to, if we don't move it, we'll have to straighten the pole. It looks like it's getting ready to fall on our house.
So, and then looking forward, if we have new subdivisions coming in, we're cognizant of where these are
Yes.
located or will be located, and then work with the developer or what
Yes.
have you.
Yeah, that just
And-
seems like
and-
why they're
Yeah, and we have, I mean, if you look at our siren kind of pattern, I mean, we have great coverage in the city. This is the furthest one to the north and west that we have in our pattern.
And there'll be more going in there pretty soon, especially with additional development happening. So
Can you get a map from Blue Valley as to what the intended coverage is of that particular siren?
I've seen it, yeah, you can bring it up on AIDS. It shows every siren we've got.
I would be very curious if we moved it up to city property on the north side there, of, if we're still hitting the people we want to hit on the south side
I mean,
of
closer
their
to-
extended range.
close to the wastewater treatment plant or Celebration Park.
Yeah, water treatment. What is the coverage of those dudes?
Half a mile.
There's a significant.
I mean, for her,
overlap
it's speed.
in the city,
No.
so there's a significant overlap. So I'm not sure exactly what the coverage is, but
Yeah, those coverages may be up to a mile, if I remember correctly, with working with Blue Valley Public Safety.
Yeah, the reason why I was asking, to Mark's point, we'd want to make sure that we locate it within whatever this current coverage
Right.
is, whatever that radius is. And how soon can we do it?
we'd have to contact them, and
Yeah, we could contact Blue Valley
we'd have to
Public
work with
Safety once we-
utilities. And
Can you just keep us up to date on that? And
Sure.
I think there's a consensus here that the 4,500 to get this thing moved is, I mean, it's under your signature authority, but I didn't want you to just act on it
Right.
without having this before the council. So if people are okay with that, we'll move forward and get that sucker moved.
And I could probably work with the developer there to have them do something. So
Yeah.
I think that's why he's here.
The developer actually
I
happens
concur.
to be
If
in-
you want to come to the mic, Jim, we're all ears.
All right, those are the only things I had. So I will move to a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Everybody's waiting for a second. I'm like, you want to stay here longer? Okay. Motion Deaton, second, Winters, that we adjourn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, any abstentions? We are.